Yeah, we're just gonna dive right into the deep end with this one. Somehow, someway, season 3 of House managed to be worse than season 2. Defying all odds and expectations, it managed to lower the bar. Now, I'm not gonna go on a long rant like I did with the last season review, hopefully, because I feel like I'll just be regurgitating the exact same information. So if you want to know my main issues with the series, I highly suggest watching my season 2 review. But long story short, it just forces conflicts that don't really need to be there and feel super unnecessary. And that trend continues on in season 3, except instead of revolving around Foreman, Karen, and Chase, it revolves around House, and I really do not like what they did with his character here. So in season 2, what was one of the best episodes in the series in my opinion, the finale, it ends up with House basically coming into terms with how he needs to change and be a better person, be more human, accept his faults, and just improve. Yeah, that was kind of thrown out like a used condom here in season 3. He just completely reverts back into the old House we know. Now, they could have taken a very interesting route with this where he realizes he needs help and he wants help, but he can't change. He tries to change, but he can't, and he reverts back to his old self, and he has to rely on his friends and his team to help him through the process of changing. Because that's a really human thing. Change is hard. It's not something easy that he can just let go of and just turn on or off like a switch, like a light switch. But that's not what happens here. He just completely reverts and he doesn't take help. He doesn't try to change. So I'm like, what was the point? What was the point of season two's finale if there was no payoff or anything? I feel like the writers of the show are just allergic to change or permanent change for the series because every plot point, every anything they do, they just revert back. Stacy is there. She's introduced at the finale of season 1. In season 2, she goes away permanently. Then you have this whole Tritter police cop situation in season 3 where the whole thing happens, nothing comes out of it, and then everything reverts back. Season 2 finale, you have House seemingly want to change, and then you just revert back. Like, why? What's the point? Like, in this season 3 finale, huge spoiler alert, the team disbands, okay? Chase, Cameron, and Foreman, they go their separate ways, leaving House to be alone. But I'm gonna shake the good old finger here. I don't think this situation is gonna last. It's gonna last about as long as a fucking fruit flying in a bug zapper, about as long as me in bed. It's not gonna last. They're gonna come back. Everything is gonna go back to normal, and we're gonna go on our good old shenanigans with the gang again. Except now I just feel like every conflict, every plot point, everything feels so weightless because I know at the end of the day, they're just gonna be fine. And everything's gonna be hunky dory, the same old goody case solving days of I don't fucking know. But you guys get the point. House at the beginning of season 1, 2 seasons later, it's still the same exact show. There has been no progression whatsoever. And mind you, these seasons are fucking long, okay? It's not 6 episodes, it's not 8 episodes. Every season is 24 episodes long. So for it to be the exact same 2 seasons later, 48 episodes later, it's unacceptable. And just I'm reaching a point where I just feel like House isn't a show for me. There's only so much Hugh Laurie's character can do to carry this show, like he's fucking Sisyphus rolling the rock up the mountain before it all inevitably comes crumbling down. That's where I'm at the moment. I'm just tired of going through the same motions episode by episode where nothing really changes, progresses, or improves. Like, no joke, every single episode of House, if not like 99% of it, follows the exact same format. Some dude from Russia comes in with the alien mind-eating disease. House doesn't want to take the case at first. He ends up taking the case. He goes through with his team about the likely symptoms and what his problems are. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. It can't be this. But what if it is that?
I tuned in this episode.
I don't know. You guys go break into his house, find whatever you can, while I do some highly illegal experiments on him. Cuddy finds out. She says, "Oh no, House, you can't do this. It's against the law. It's highly immoral. It's against the rules." And the House ends up doing it anyway. House injects the patient with some weird fluid that makes him convulse and have a fucking seizure. He doesn't know what's going on. He thought he would get better from that, but he clearly didn't. His team comes back and they can't find anything that explains the symptoms at his house. So at this point, he's completely stumped. He doesn't know what to do. So he sends him off to an MRI or a biopsy because why the fuck not? But during the seizure, during the scan, the patient stops doing the Harlem Shake and they have no idea why. When they take him out, he gets even worse. He starts coughing up blood, his eyes explode, his dick grows 2 times in length. They don't know what's up, so House goes and takes a shit on the toilet. And on that toilet, he has a fucking Zack Schrader moment. He leaves the knowledge circle, his brain expands, and he realizes that this is not a disease, it's a neurological symptom. So he breaks in again, opens up the dude's brain, and fucking zaps radiation into it, killing half the neurons because they were already dead. They were breaking down the other ones that were already active, and this fixes him, and voila, save the day, problem solved. That is how most of the episodes in this series go. The only one with any semblance of progression here was surprisingly Cuddy. She became a little bit more lenient as to how extreme House can take his experiments and procedures, which is not the same that could be said for Wilson, his best friend. So House goes and cracks this impossibly hard case where the dude, the patient, is basically a vegetable. And he gets to walk upright, hug his wife, and everything by the end, but they don't tell House that he actually did solve it. They kept that fact hidden from him and decided it's time to teach him some humility, whatever the fuck that means in this context. They need to teach him that, oh, he could be wrong. Except this just made things worse because he began to second guess himself and not take the same risks that he used to. All because Wilson wanted to teach him a lesson, hammering some manners into you. I don't fucking know, but he was right. House was right. He solved the case. And that's just such a dick move to not tell him that. It just made Wilson seem like a jealous prick and somebody unwilling to accept how much of a genius House is. Which brings me to the whole Tritter police plotline. There's no way I can't talk about this just because of how nonsensical it is if you stop and think about it for more than 1 second. And it concludes in one of the worst resolutions in episodes I've ever seen. So the basic premise here is that they bring in this cop who is a patient of House's. House shoves a rod up his ass because he was being annoying, and then that cop wants revenge. Again, the whole point of this plot is to teach House a lesson on how far he can take things, which means the cop is an even bigger bully than House is. Now, I don't have a problem with this. It leads to some interesting dynamics, until it doesn't, because what the cop does is far worse than what House does. Sure, House is a jerk, but this guy straight up sabotaged the entire hospital, actively cutting off treatment for cancer patients. You heard that correctly. And we're expected to think he's doing the right thing. He's the one with the moral high ground here. No, what the fuck, you're not. What are we doing here? Like, how was this shit even greenlit or allowed? And the cherry on top, the sprinkle to your ice cream, it ends off with the worst patient treatment episode in the whole series, ever. So the gist of it are that this firefighter continues having strokes while on the job, and they don't know why. So they bring him into the hospital and he continues having those exact same strokes. And coincidentally, those only happen when he sees his brother's wife, or fiancé. Yeah, you could probably guess where this is going. The dude isn't sick, he doesn't have some clot, he doesn't have a flesh-eating parasite or a fungi in his heart. The dude has a fatal case of the feels. He is lovesick. Now yeah, that sounds ridiculous on its own, but the treatment for this situation is even worse. So at this point you're probably thinking, that doesn't seem like a hard thing to solve, just separate them so he never sees her again, or give him therapy, or just some brain surgery, I don't know. Well, they kind of decided on the latter. Their decision was to fry the dude's brain so he forgets who she was. Not just who she was, forget who he was. By zapping his brain, they effectively erased him from reality. The dude just doesn't exist anymore. They killed the guy. He doesn't remember his family. He doesn't remember who he was, what his job was. He's just gone. There were actually hundreds of different alternatives I would choose before frying the dude out of existence, turning him into a husk of meat. That's the best solution we could have come up with. It just doesn't compute with me. And it gets worse. Somehow, someway, it gets worse. Because the whole time, his brother and his fiancée weren't even in love. They weren't even partners. They weren't planning on a wedding. This whole thing, this whole situation happened out of a misunderstanding. So you effectively just killed the guy for no reason. And by the end, they didn't do anything to solve the problem because, I mean, you can't really solve it anymore. He's just kind of a vegetable now. You just have a walking vegetable, and the house team just kicks their foot in the air and puts their hands up. Well, it is what it is. Like, dude, it is so stupid. It was the stupidest resolution I've ever seen. Holy shit. Anyway, I don't want to keep yapping about this. Bottom line is, Season 3 doesn't have the same lows that Season 2 had, but it sure as hell didn't have the same highs either. I can't think of a single episode that really stands out to me. Maybe the one where House consensually murders someone? Maybe that. No, there's actually episode 4. Episode 4 was the best episode in the season, in my opinion, where House is treating this autistic child, a severely autistic child, and this kid is really infatuated with their PSP. Now, at some point during the episode, House goes into Wilson's office and sees a bunch of souvenirs from previous patients lying around. And he just doesn't see the value in them and actually ends up throwing one out. But by the end of the episode, he gets that PSP from that same kid after saving him as a thank you. And at that point, he actually realizes how much these things are worth, and it seemed to have a profound impact on him. Until it didn't, because he just didn't go anywhere and they did nothing with that information. But it was still a good episode and a good moment, and I really like that. I just hope that it helped in shaping his character or doing something for the plot and not having another useless episode where nothing came out of it, like 99% of these episodes. Anyway, long rant over. I'm still going to continue watching the show because I don't drop things I already started. I fucking hate that rule I made for myself, but it is what it is. And with that being said, I rate House Season 3 a 4.3 out of 10. And yeah, that's about it. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, or don't, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.